Yes, I can help with Joshua Selman sermons. Apostle Joshua Selman is a Nigerian Christian minister, teacher and founder of Koinonia's Eternity Network International. His sermons are widely known for their depth, strong scriptural foundations, and emphasis on spiritual growth, intimacy with God, destiny, leadership, and the ministry of the Holy Spirit. December is not just the final chapter of the year. It is the prophetic womb of divine possibilities, a month where seasons align and destinies are sealed. When a believer speaks to a month, they are not talking to time. They are talking to spiritual gates, transition points, and prophetic junctions that determine what enters their life. And tonight, we stand at the gate of December with understanding, declaring, December, every believer must understand that God allocates times and seasons, but men decide what enters those seasons through revelation and declarations. A silent Christian is a defeated Christian. What you do not speak, you cannot see. December is a month that responds to voices, voices of prayer, voices of alignment, voices of prophecy. And the moment your voice rises, the atmosphere adjusts itself to accommodate your destiny. This is the month when God restores the years, not just the days. One encounter with divine mercy in December can redeem the mistakes of 11 months. One instruction obeyed in December can open a gate that remains permanent for the rest of your life. That is why we speak with boldness. December, I command you, release my crown. For the crown represents validation, honor, divine recognition, and enthronement. There are battles you fought this year that nobody saw, tears you shed that nobody understood, sacrifices that heaven witnessed, but men ignored. December is the month where December is a prophetic gateway, not merely the end of a calendar, because in the realm of the Spirit, time is not measured by clocks and dates, but by seasons, transitions, and divine visitations. Many people look at December as simply the last page of a long year. But spiritually, it is a gate, a doorway where what God planned can finally collide with what you have prayed for. It is the place where heaven completes cycles, perfects processes, and seals destinies. When God opens a gate, it is not about days passing, it is about moments aligning. That is why December carries a weight that other months often do not carry. It is the month where heaven begins to audit your year, to evaluate sacrifices, to remember tears, to respond to obedience, and to release what belongs to you. In the physical, December closes the year, but in the spiritual, December announces a new beginning. A gateway is a place of transition, decision, and spiritual exchange. Whoever controls the gate controls what enters and what is kept out. That is why some people experience battles in December. The enemy understands timing more than believers do. He knows that if you enter a new season wrongly, you can carry the burden of an old year into a new one. Spiritual gates must be handled with understanding and intentionality. December responds to revelation, not emotion, to declarations, not assumptions. If you keep silent at the gate of December, you give room for anything to enter your year. But when you rise with the consciousness that this month is a spiritual doorway, your posture changes, your language changes, and your expectations become aligned with heaven. There are certain breakthroughs that only manifest at gates. When the Israelites crossed into new seasons, they did not just walk, they made declarations, sacrifices, and prophetic actions. December is such a moment. You must speak to it, not casually but with conviction. You must stand as one who understands that spiritual gates are voice activated. When you decree that December must release your blessings, heaven begins to open scrolls with your name on them. Every testimony waiting for a divine signal begins to move toward manifestation. Every promise that seemed delayed throughout the year begins to accelerate because you are standing at a prophetic crossing. When you treat December as just another month, you shut down the prophetic energy that God has allocated to it. You may feel tired, disappointed, or indifferent because the year did not unfold the way you expected. But December is not a month of regret. It is a month of redemption. It is the place where God says, I can still do it, even now. One word from God in December can realign years of confusion. One divine visitation in December can rewrite the verdicts the enemy planned against you. One act of obedience in December can position you for open doors in the coming year. This is why wise believers handle December with reverence. They do not enter it casually. They recognize that this is the month when spiritual gates are open, when angels are active, and when the voice of the believer carries unusual authority. December listens. December responds. December delivers. It is a prophetic gate that requires bold declarations, sensitive hearts, and awakened spirits. If you align with this truth, December will not end empty for you. It will become the month where cycles shift, where heaven remembers you, where prophecies mature, and where your life steps into the dimension God intended from the beginning. Your voice determines what enters your season, because in the kingdom, outcomes are not decided by desire alone, but by declarations rooted in revelation. Many believers hope for change, pray for help, and expect breakthroughs, yet they remain silent at the moments when heaven is listening. Spiritual realms are voice activated. Destinies respond to sound. God himself created the universe by speaking, not by thinking. He showed us a principle that nothing significant manifests until a voice has been released. When you remain silent, you allow circumstances, emotions, and adversaries to decide the direction of your life. But when your voice rises, you impose spiritual order upon your environment. Your voice is not just sound, it is a tool of regulation, activation, and alignment. Every season has gates, and every gate responds to a prophetic voice. This is why battles often intensify around season transitions. The enemy is not afraid of your thoughts, he is afraid of your declarations. As long as your expectations remain unspoken, they remain powerless in the spirit. Silence at the edge of a new season is one of the greatest ways believers postpone what God is ready to release. The enemy understands that if you speak with understanding, you will legislate your advancement. So he keeps many silent through discouragement, fear, disappointment, or exhaustion, hoping they will enter a new season with a closed mouth. Your voice determines what enters your season, because speaking is an act of spiritual authorization. When you declare favor, you authorize favor. When you decree open doors, you permit heaven to open them. When you speak restoration, you activate angelic movement in that direction. Every time you speak, something in the spirit world shifts. Your words create pathways for manifestations to travel. They summon what belongs to you and reject what is not permitted in your destiny. Words are not empty, they are seeds, laws, and forces. They travel into your tomorrow, shape environments, influence outcomes, and build the realities you will eventually walk into. Many people speak from emotion, but prophetic speaking comes from revelation. It is not about shouting loudly, but speaking accurately. Your season does not respond to volume, it responds to spiritual authority. When you speak from alignment with God's word, your voice carries weight that cannot be contested. Heaven recognizes that language. Darkness fears it. Angels respond to it. So when you declare, this season will not end until my blessing manifests, you are not motivating yourself. You are legislating your spiritual atmosphere. You are telling unseen forces where to stand, what to release, and what to avoid. Your voice is also a boundary. It protects your season from intrusion. When you declare peace, you set a spiritual border that trouble cannot cross. When you declare progress, you prevent stagnation from settling. When you decree favor, you repel rejection. What you do not reject, you unconsciously accept. Many carry battles into new seasons because they never verbally shut the door on the old one. Silence allows old patterns to follow. Declarations break cycles and announce new beginnings. God honors speaking because it is an expression of faith. Faith is not silent. Faith speaks the language of conviction before evidence appears. When you speak into your season, you are not describing your reality. You are creating it. You are aligning your environment with God's intention. You are announcing to the atmosphere that you know who you are and what belongs to you. So lift your voice. Speak boldly. Speak consistently. Speak with revelation. For your voice is the gatekeeper of your destiny, and your season will always deliver what your voice has commanded. December is the month of divine honor, your crown, because honor is one of the highest spiritual currencies of the kingdom. A crown is not just a physical symbol worn on the head. It represents validation, recognition, and the lifting of a person after a season of hidden labor. Many people go through an entire year serving, sacrificing, obeying God, standing in integrity, being faithful in quiet corners where no applause exists. Heaven sees all of it. December becomes the divine stage where unseen faithfulness receives visible honor. A crown is God's way of saying, I saw what men ignored. I recorded what no one noticed. And now it is time to honor you. Honor is not something you demand. It is something that rests on you when your season of lifting arrives. Throughout the year, many believers fight battles that no one understands. Emotional warfare, financial struggles, spiritual resistances, family burdens, personal sacrifices. Some of these battles were fought silently. Others were endured in faith, even when breakthroughs did not appear immediately. And while you may think those sacrifices disappeared into the air, heaven never loses record of obedience. Heaven never forgets the faithful. Heaven never leaves the diligent unrewarded. December is the month where the books of remembrance are opened. Your crown is not just about personal glory, it is about divine endorsement. When God crowns a man, he publicly affirms what he privately approved. There are levels of honor that come from people, and there are levels that only God can give. When God decides to honor you, no man can diminish it, no system can resist it, no environment can sabotage it. Honor from God is irreversible. It comes with favor, visibility, and influence. It attracts opportunities, relationships, and platforms that were previously inaccessible. A crown is not just placed on your head, it changes your posture, your voice, your authority, and your trajectory. December carries the prophetic energy of crowning because it is a season of culmination. Crowning always comes at the end of a process, not the beginning. You don't crown a king mid-journey, you crown him at the completion of his preparation. Many people have spent the year being shaped, pruned, refined, and purified by God. The pressures you endured were not punishments, they were preparations. The delays you faced were not denials, they were alignments. The disappointments were not failures, they were divine adjustments. All of these form part of the spiritual journey that qualifies you for your crown. A crown also symbolizes the restoration of dignity. There are many who entered this year with confidence, but encountered situations that stripped them of joy, peace, boldness, or even self-worth. Some had setbacks that made them question their value. But December comes with divine restoration, the power to give you back the dignity that life or circumstances attempted to steal. When God crowns you, he restores your honor, your identity, and your strength. You rise again, not because circumstances changed, but because God has placed something upon you that shifts how you walk through circumstances. The crown is also a symbol of authority. It means God is granting you the capacity to take territory you once feared, to speak with a confidence you once lacked, to walk into environments where you were previously ignored. A crowned man does not beg for recognition, he carries it. A crowned woman does not chase validation, she manifests it. December becomes the month where God says, you have walked humbly, now walk in authority. You have served faithfully, now rule with wisdom. This is why December must be spoken to. You declare boldly that it must release your crown, because spiritual crowns do not drop by chance. They are summoned by understanding. When you align with God's agenda, honor finds you. It crowns your year, it crowns your effort, and it crowns your destiny with the approval of heaven. Glory is God's visible signature on a person's life, because it is the dimension of God that transforms ordinary stories into undeniable testimonies. Glory is not human applause or the celebration that comes from men. It is the imprint of divinity upon your journey. When glory rests on a life, the difference becomes clear, not by human effort, but by divine involvement. Glory is when results appear that you did not have the strength, intelligence, or connections to produce on your own. It is God making his presence known in such a way that people cannot trace your success to anything but his hand. To understand glory, you must first recognize that it is the atmosphere of God's presence made manifest. When God steps into a situation, he does not step in quietly, he steps in with glory. Throughout the year, many people walk through seasons of hiding, processing, pruning, stretching, and waiting. These seasons do not always reflect glory. They often reflect obedience, sacrifice, discipline, or endurance. But in December, there is a prophetic shift. A moment where what was done privately becomes rewarded publicly. This is when God takes a story that was covered in pain, delay, or obscurity and wraps it with his glory, so that the final outcome looks nothing like the journey. Glory transforms shame into testimony. There are people who walked through situations that made them bow their heads, doubting whether they would ever see joy again. When glory comes, it wipes away the memory of shame. It causes people to admire the life they once pitied. Glory makes you a reference of what God can do with someone who refuses to give up. It makes you a living witness of divine possibility. When glory lands, the same voices that criticize your process become the same voices that celebrate your outcome. Glory also represents divine visibility. There are individuals who have carried greatness, ideas, anointings, capacities, and gifts all year long, but they remained unseen. Sometimes it was not the fault of the individual. It simply was not their time of manifestation. But glory is the element that announces a person. When God covers you with glory, he brings you into remembrance. He positions you before the right eyes. He accelerates what had been stagnant. He opens doors that your strength could never open. With glory, your relevance is not negotiated. It is established. Another dimension of glory is transformation. Glory does not just decorate, it elevates. It lifts you into new realms of wisdom, influence, favor, and impact. It shifts your environment and upgrades your spiritual ranking. When glory rests on a person, even their weaknesses become opportunities for God to reveal his strength. The areas where you once struggled become the very platforms where God displays his power. Glory turns your story into a message, your journey into a testimony, and your life into evidence. Glory also fights battles for you. There are realms of warfare you no longer engage indirectly when glory covers you. Glory becomes a shield, a defense, and a spiritual announcement that you are not alone. It intimidates the adversary and frustrates the plans of darkness. Many battles you fought this year were because you were rising. But December brings a shift where God clothes you with glory, and battles that once pursued you begin to bow before you. Finally, glory is the confirmation that a season has changed. When glory arrives, you can no longer remain where you were. The environment around you adjusts. Relationships shift. Opportunities multiply. Helpers arise. And life aligns with purpose. Glory makes it clear to everyone, including you, that God has touched your life. December becomes the month where glory speaks loudly, announcing that every hidden investment, every prayer, every tear, and every act of obedience has now been wrapped in divine manifestation. Glory is God saying, this is my doing, and it is marvelous in your eyes. The seeds you sow throughout the year rise to God as a memorial in December, because nothing done in obedience, love, sacrifice, or faith ever disappears in the realm of the Spirit. Every action you take, every prayer whispered, every act of generosity, every moment you resisted temptation, every instruction you obeyed, becomes a seed planted in the soil of destiny. And God, who sees in secret, keeps accurate records. While you may forget some of the sacrifices you made during the year, heaven does not forget. The spiritual realm functions like a divine ecosystem. Whatever you sow must produce after its kind. December becomes the month when those seeds, many of which seemed silent or dormant, begin to speak before God and demand a heavenly response. Seeds are not only financial, they are decisions, sacrifices, corrections, alignments, and faith steps. Sometimes the seeds you plant are painful. Choosing integrity when compromise seemed easier, forgiving when you could have retaliated, giving even when your own hands were empty, praying even while battling discouragement. These seeds cost you something, and that is why they carry weight. God is not unjust. He does not watch you labor through a year of obedience only to reward you with emptiness. December is the spiritual courtroom where these seeds rise as witnesses, testifying of your faithfulness, your growth, your secret commitments, and your perseverance. There are seeds that grow immediately, and there are seeds that take months of silent growth beneath the surface. Many believers mistake silence for absence, thinking that nothing is happening simply because nothing is visible. But every seed planted in faith undergoes a supernatural process. It takes root, establishes stability, and matures quietly. By the time December arrives, the spiritual cycle of many seeds is complete. What you sowed in January in ignorance, what you sowed in April in tears, what you sowed in August in hope, all these seeds stand before God saying, it is time to be remembered. This is why the end of the year carries unusual spiritual movement. It is not because December is magically blessed. It is because it is the month where heaven reviews the spiritual investments of men. Every instruction you obeyed that made no sense now becomes a point of reference. Every battle you endured without compromising becomes a testimony. Every time you believe God against all odds becomes a spiritual memorial that heaven cannot ignore. These seeds provoke divine intervention, angelic activity, and prophetic fulfillment. Seeds are also spiritual contracts. When you obey God, you enter an agreement with His integrity. When you bless a life, heaven records it. When you honor an instruction, you align yourself with spiritual laws that guarantee harvest. The only uncertainty is the timing, but the timing often converges in December. This is why unexpected breakthroughs, last-minute testimonies, sudden favor, or surprising restorations often happen at the end of the year. It is not random, it is harvest. Some seeds were prayers you thought went unanswered. Yet in the realm of the Spirit, every prayer is stored in golden bowls, waiting for the appointed time. December is the month when many of these bowls are poured out. Your tears too were seeds. Tears birthed in sincerity move heaven in ways words cannot. God promised that those who sow in tears will reap in joy. December becomes a fulfillment of that promise, where your quiet struggles become loud testimonies. Even the seeds of pain, endurance, and waiting carry prophetic power. Some of the things you endured were not just life happening. They were seeds of perseverance that heaven honors. Delays were not denials. They were preparations for a harvest that would speak louder at the end of the year than at the beginning. December comes as a divine reminder that nothing you sowed was wasted. The seeds you planted throughout the year rise like incense before God, summoning favor, attracting mercy, and invoking divine remembrance. And when God remembers you, it is never subtle. Harvest comes with fullness, with restoration, and with an undeniable announcement that heaven has honored your investment. God can restore an entire year in one moment because divine restoration does not follow the slow processes of human time. When God steps into a situation, He is not bound by the limitations of chronology, effort, or natural progression. He does not need 12 months to repair what was damaged in 12 months. He does not require long explanations, repeated attempts, or extended procedures. The Creator who formed the universe in 6 days and raised Jesus from the grave in one morning can shift an entire destiny in a single instant. Restoration is not difficult for God. It is His nature. And December becomes the month where this nature is expressed with unusual intensity. Many people go through a year struggling, believing, fighting battles, enduring delays, or facing disappointments. Some dreams seemed postponed. Some relationships collapsed. Some opportunities slipped away. Some prayers seemed unanswered. Some seasons brought more questions than joy. Yet God never loses sight of His plans. And He never miscalculates timing. What looks like loss to you may simply be part of a divine strategy. What appears like delay may be the shaping of a greater testimony. What seems like silence is often God preparing a sudden shift. The human mind often believes that restoration must match the amount of time lost. If a person wasted 10 months, they assume it will take months to recover. But God does not restore according to time lost. He restores according to destiny, purpose, and His own glory. In Scripture, we see God restoring years, not just things. He said, I will restore to you the years the locust has eaten. How does one restore years? By compressing breakthroughs, favor, and harvests into moments. By accelerating what was stagnant. By multiplying what seemed small. By opening doors so significant they erase the memory of past delays. This is why December is powerful. It is the month where God often compresses blessings, testimonies, and breakthroughs into dramatic, unexpected encounters. Sudden phone calls, last-minute approvals, relationships restored, battles won, jobs secured, miracles released, ideas activated, strength renewed. It is the month where God proves that He was not absent. He was preparing a dramatic conclusion. God's restorations are not subtle. When He restores, people who once petted you begin to marvel. When He restores, progress happens that cannot be explained logically. When He restores, your entire trajectory changes. Restoration is also the vindication of obedience. There are seasons when you obeyed God but saw no reward. You prayed but felt no breakthrough. You sowed but saw no harvest. You forgave but felt no peace. You waited but saw no movement. Yet every act of obedience accumulates spiritual weight. Every seed, every sacrifice, every prayer becomes part of a divine equation. And at the appointed time, which often aligns with the end of a cycle, God begins to release what was stored. Restoration comes not as a slow drizzle, but as a sudden rain, overwhelming and undeniable. Even what you think is permanently lost is not beyond God's reach. Time lost, opportunities missed, relationships broken, resources wasted. None of these are beyond divine recovery. God does not simply give you back what you lost. He upgrades it. He multiplies it. He transforms it. His restoration is not replacement. It is elevation. Think of Joseph. Years lost in slavery and prison were restored in one day when he became a ruler in Egypt. Think of Job. All he lost was returned in double portion. Think of Ruth. One encounter shifted her from widowhood to destiny. This is why December must be treated with expectation. It is the month that carries the grace of closure, completion, and crowning. It is the month where God says, I can still do it even now. No matter how the year unfolded, one moment of divine intervention can rewrite your entire story. What you lost in months, God can return in minutes. What you think is over, God can resurrect. What seems impossible, God can accomplish suddenly. December becomes the season where your faith must rise, your declarations must intensify, and your heart must believe that the God who restores years is still writing your story, and He has saved the best for last. You must understand that prophetic declarations shape the outcome of your year's ending, because the spiritual realm is governed by laws, and one of the highest of these laws is the law of utterance. In the kingdom, nothing changes until something is spoken. God framed the world with His words, and He wired creation to respond to sound. The atmosphere reacts to commands. Angels respond to instructions. Seasons respond to declarations. Your life follows the direction of your tongue. What you declare at the close of a year becomes the script your destiny performs in the coming year. Silence is not humility. Silence is surrender. When you refuse to speak, you allow circumstances, patterns, and unseen forces to dictate your outcome. But when you rise with revelation and declare the will of God, you impose divine order upon your environment. The end of the year is not just a transition in time. It is a spiritual gate. Gates are decision points, places of warfare, places of alignment, and places where destinies are sealed. Prophetic gates must never be crossed silently. What you say at the gate determines what follows you through it. Many people carry battles from year to year, not because those battles are stronger than their prayers, but because they never shut the door with words. They never declare the end of affliction, the close of cycles, the expiration of delay, or the termination of oppression. If you do not dismiss what tormented you, it will assume it has permission to continue. But your declaration is a spiritual eviction notice. It tells old seasons, you will not follow me into the next chapter. Declarations also summon new seasons. When you speak, you call forth what God already ordained for you. You activate blessings that were prepared but dormant. Your voice becomes the bridge between divine intention and earthly manifestation. Heaven does not force blessings into your life. Heaven waits for agreement. A declaration is not just speech. It is partnership with God. It is you telling the spiritual realm, I agree with what God has said concerning me. And the moment agreement is established, manifestation begins. Some breakthroughs are not delayed. They are waiting for your voice. Prophetic declarations also rewrite spiritual verdicts. There are patterns, cycles, and limitations that have spoken over individuals and families for years. These cycles speak through repeated disappointment, near success syndrome, stagnation, or untimely battles. But the prophetic voice is a weapon that breaks these cycles. When you declare, this year will not end the way previous years ended, you are not encouraging yourself, you are breaking patterns. You are dismantling ancient altars of delay. You are commanding the spiritual climate around your life to shift. Your declaration is also a seed. When you speak, you plant spiritual seeds into the soil of December. Those seeds, words of faith, decrees of victory, confessions of restoration, begin to grow into outcomes. Words have life, they do not die. They travel into your tomorrow and wait for you. What you declare at the gate of December becomes the harvest you experience in the next year. This is why careless words at the end of a year are dangerous. Saying things like, whatever happens, happens. Or this year is already over, shuts down your spiritual authority and hands control over to chaos. But speaking intentionally reclaims your authority and redirects your destiny. Prophetic declarations also align your mind and spirit with expectation. When you speak boldly, your heart begins to believe what your mouth is declaring. Faith rises, doubt weakens, clarity comes, strength returns. December becomes not a month of fear or regret, but a month of prophetic engagement. When your spirit is stirred and your voice is activated, you step into a dimension where heaven recognizes your authority. Angels move, the earth responds. Doors open, paths straighten. Finally, prophetic declarations seal your year. They create closure. They finalize victories. They summon harvest. They crown your efforts with divine endorsement. Your voice becomes the final judge that determines how your year ends. When you speak with revelation, you take control of your spiritual narrative. You refuse to end the year in defeat. You insist on divine completion. You declare that your crown, your glory, and your harvest must appear before the year closes. Your voice is the key. Your declaration is the weapon. Your words are the seal. And when you speak with authority in December, heaven responds, earth aligns, and your destiny moves into the chapter God designed for you.